in the middle of the ceremony, I found what I was looking for. I was like, I've been on this earth for 2 decades, and I wasn't even understanding what is this life about? What is the meaning of life? Where are we going?
Mm,
Is it about making some money, making a family, and then growing old and dying, or there must be more to life? And so this is where the main value of San Pedro is that it literally shows you how it feels to love yourself and how it
mm.
feels to be safe in your body. And because of that, a lot of people, their lives change.
Hey, everybody, and welcome to this week's episode of Love, Loss, and Hallucinations. This week's guest is a super interesting human. His name is Samer Mouawad. Samir is, I guess you could say, an accidental shaman. When he first discovered plant medicine many years ago, he had no inclination that it would lead him on his path to become a shaman. So get into that a little bit. We do a deep dive into Wachuma or San Pedro, which is a cactus plant medicine, as well as we talk a bit about kambo, talk about why you might want to do Wachuma versus ayahuasca versus kambo. Samir has a vast knowledge of all of this, so I'm really happy that we lined up this talk for today. I hope you enjoy it as much as I did. Samir, so great to have you on the podcast, joining us all the way from the Sacred Valley of Peru. It's been like 8 years since we met in the jungle near
Yeah.
Iquitos at a retreat center there. And you've had a journey both getting there and to the jungle and since. So I think I'd like to start. And, I just want to preface our whole conversation with the reason why I wanted to have Samir on the uh, podcast was because he is just really had a deep dive into Wachuma, which is also called San Pedro. Um, and, Wachuma is actually one of the, if not the oldest psychedelic that humans have interacted with. There's that has been shown and proven. It's like there's a cave, I believe, in Peru that it's like 10,000 years ago. There's evidence of humans using this cactus. Um, so, but it doesn't get all the attention and all the glory, at least not up here in Northern America, that some of the other psychedelics get. So I'm really excited to have you on to get into all of that. But before we get there, if I remember correctly, you're from Lebanon, correctly? Is that right?
Originally, I am from Lebanon, and this year I'm becoming Peruvian. It's been a
Really?
long journey.
Officially?
Yes,
Yeah.
I'm finally getting naturalized after a couple of decades. I thought like it's a good idea. I
Well,
mean,
congratulations.
thank you, God. Uh, just I just also want to say thank you for having me, and thank you for the opportunity to share about Wachuma and the medicine and shamanism.
Well, again, I'm so excited to have your expertise on here and your wisdom that I know you will be sharing. So, yeah, I guess how does one from someone from Lebanon find their way to the jungles of Peru and plant medicine?
It's a very, very good question, and I think the simplest answer to this is you get called by the spirits. And
Mm,
when a spirit marks their shaman and their practitioner, no matter what you are doing in life, there's a pull and there's a, I want to say, a passion and like a passionate obsession that pulls you towards getting reconnected with the spirits, and becoming a steward for them, as as far as I believe, as you were in many other lifetimes. And so
mm,
my journey, I was in Lebanon and I was working as a financial manager. And in one very, commercial documentary, I heard about ayahuasca back in the early 2000s. And I was like, oh, great. I want to go spend time and see some dragons. And I didn't even think about it about other than that. It was much more of a curiosity. It was much more of, let's go see what this is about. And then you get to the jungle and the spirits are like, where have you been? We've been waiting for you.
mm,
There's this and this and this and this, and there's so many things we need to do. And they show you visions. And then 10, 15 years later, the visions you see that were probably part of what you believed are hallucinations back then, you see that has become your life. And this is where you know, or like it's more like of a proof that what you have been told was actually real.
Wow. So what you saw on those first journeys has since sort of manifested itself into what you're doing today.
Yeah, they even showed me maps on Earth that I have now been doing retreats in these spots that I saw in my vision in my first ayahuasca. That being said, Scott, my first ayahuasca was the least I can say was a disaster if I want to compare it to to the ceremonies I do today. It was very scary. There was a lot of datura in
Mhm.
it. It was like a very concentrated ayahuasca with a lot of other herbs and plants and roots. And back then, centers were not very focused on settings
Right.
and the safety. So you're basically backpacking in the jungle of Peru and wishing for the best. And you know, I guess I guess I made it. That's what I can say.
Yeah, I totally relate to that because when I first went to Peru and did ayahuasca in 2006, there was nothing set and setting. There wasn't preparation, integration. It was just like throw you in and you're kind of on your own to kind of like process it afterwards for the most part.
Yeah, you like
And
backpacking and you see a family
yeah.
and they tell you, "Oh, we have a curandero that knows ayahuasca and some tobacco, and maybe you want to go check him out." And that's it. Like, it's it wasn't a positive experience. It was very scary for me.
Mhm.
There was a lot of lack of safety, a lot of danger, and I remember very well after a couple of hours, my entire psyche blacked out, and I didn't remember anything for 2 3 hours after that. And then I woke up. The ceremony was finishing, but within these 2 hours, I saw all these visions, and because my trauma was very deep, and I wasn't coming particularly from a very healthy background. Between coffee and unhealthy food and unhealthy habits and patterns. And all these crossed energies showed in an ayahuasca ceremony. And it just broke me, I would say.
Oof. Wow.
Yeah.
And that I mean, you're saying it was scary, as frightening, it broke you. Like, I think a lot of people would hear all that and go, "Why would you do that again then?"
Well, this is a very good question because in the middle of the ceremony, I found what I was looking for. I was like, holy shit, I've been I've been on this earth for 2 decades and I wasn't even understanding what is this life about? What is the meaning of life? Where are we going?
Mm,
Is it about making some money, making a family, and then growing old and dying? Or there must be more to life. Not that a family is not an important thing, not that making money is an important thing, but I wasn't convinced that this is everything that is in life. Like I was in pursuit of meaning at the core of
mm,
myself, connection, and that sense of community that I found within the spirit world and within the community of the people I work with.
mm. So a deeper connection, both within yourself, to the world at large, and to the spirit world is what you found in that first ceremony. Is that right?
I found the answer to the fact that I was looking for that, but then the
Mm,
journey actually unfolded into exactly that. Yes,
okay. So that yeah, that opened the door to this is what
exactly.
you're looking for, and then the
Yeah,
subsequent ceremonies put you on that path to finding it.
exactly. And it
Yeah.
wasn't that much about ayahuasca per se. It was more
Mhm.
about there's there's this thing called shamanism, this thing where you connect with the
Mm,
cosmology of the earth and the places of earth and the animals and the plants and the mountains, and there was so many other psychedelics, so many other plants, which eventually led to me making a pact not only with the cosmology of ayahuasca, but the pact was with the spirit world and specifically with the plant world. And this is why
mm.
I ended up practicing with ayahuasca, with San Pedro or Wachuma, with Wilca, with mushrooms, and I do so many other healing modalities with herbalism in general.
Wow. So you when you went down there the first time, like it was you thought consciously on this conscious level, you thought, oh, I'm just curious about this, and maybe it might expand my consciousness or something. But you had no intentions of like going into like studying shamanism or studying the plants or like taking it to the level that you have today.
No, not at all. I was a very curious mystic. I used to, read
Mm,
Sidhu Krishnamurti, Osho. I was in my early teens. I used to meditate and do some yoga and go for walks in the forest and whatnot. My grandfather used to practice herbalism, so I used to know about these things. Uh, but in
yeah.
my mind, I was like, "Oh, I'm just gonna go on a vacation, check this thing out, and come back to working with money." I wasn't like I wasn't expecting that I would find myself and I would find a world that really vibrates with who I am or
Wow.
resonate. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, I love that in a way you've continued on this education that your grandfather was interested in as well. I mean, that's kind of a beautiful just little note there. So you started with ayahuasca, and I said earlier about Wachuma being evidence of 10,000 years of
right.
humans using it in some capacity. And ayahuasca, there's at least archaeological evidence of at least 1,000 years, and I feel like indigenous people would say it's much longer than that. And so for those of you out there who might be like, that here we are, we're talking about spirits and cosmologies, and what do you mean about all this? And it doesn't maybe jive with the Western modern medicine uh, thing that we've all been taught. If it seems too out there for you to like really take it in, just consider this knowledge and this insights that we'll be talking about today as sort of like a cultural exploration. Or also keep in mind that Western modern medicine used to kind of look down on acupuncture, and now Harvard neuroscientists are finding the pathways of acupuncture are, surprise surprise, real.
Not to
They figured
mention
this out
the
thousands and thousands of years ago.
yeah, and also to mention the psilocybin assisted therapies, the
Yeah.
ketamine, the ibogaine. So medicine is catching up.
Yeah. Yeah. It, thankfully, finally, right? After it being put away, unfortunately, for the last 40 years or so.
If I may, Scott, just say something.
Yes, of course.
Naturopathic therapy and shamanism is more of a preventative practice. And
Mm,
so you basically work with someone so they don't get sick. Because when someone is already sick, that means they have been sick for years and suddenly things are starting to show up in their body, in their mind, and their emotions. And so, this is where the advantages and the potency of it is. But if someone has a
mm,
broken bone, I tell them, please go to the hospital. It's not like modern medicine is a bad thing. Like, as a humanity, modern medicine has helped us a lot and did so much for us. But on the other hand, it's almost like seeing half of the picture
hmm.
without the energy side, the psychological side, the electromagnetism side, and it only relies on chemistry and whatever comes with it in the hospital, in the ER, and all these stuff.
Yeah.
So
Well,
just
I'm
wanted
glad
to
you brought that
clarify.
up and pointed that
Yes,
out.
I just wanted to clarify. I'm not against modern medicine. I think it's a wonderful
Yeah.
thing. It's just not complete.
Yeah. And neither am I. It's, there's times for reactive medicine, sort of like the saving the broken bone. And then there's, preventative medicine like this, which,
Right.
they both have their place and can help us live better lives, I would say. And from your training, both with all the various plants, you now have, I read on your website, have this term
Regenerative shamanism. Yeah.
regenerative. Why can I not say that correctly? Regenerative shamanism. What is like? What do you feel that encapsulates? How do you define that?
It's as simple as living a life that is in flow and harmony.
Mm,
And the idea of it is that if you go do an ayahuasca ceremony or a San Pedro ceremony, or you do a detox with kambo, it's not going to save your life. It's not going to make you, uh, it's not like a magic pill that's going to fix everything. And the
mhm,
idea is to understand food, to understand that body movement is important, to understand that stagnation happens in the joints, and this is why we need mobility and flexibility, to understand that the routines and the habits and the discipline that we have in everyday life is what changes our lives. And only those vortices, if I wanna say the word in energetic terms, but in English, it's like these routines and habits are what pulls us out of the pattern that makes us sick and stagnated and not
mm,
okay. So, and regenerative shamanism is a practice that is when people come to a retreat, and it's like the retreat is like a steering wheel, and the regenerative shamanism, you take it back home, and it's when the whole ship is going into a specific direction. So that's why I thought regenerative shamanism, it's almost like integrating all the practices that you learn in a retreat, and you take them back into your day to day life.
mm.
That's
So,
the
and
idea.
is that part of the retreats that you run then, like, showing people how to, like, incorporate it after the fact?
Exactly. So during the retreats, we have a lot of group talks, we have a one-on-one talks, we have talk therapies. We talk a lot about food. We talk about a lot about how patterns form, how habits uh, shape our lives, and all that comes with that. And we also talk a lot about food as a medicine, so that people
Mm,
understand that if you eat a pizza and drink a, you know, whatever alcohol with it, you're gonna, you know, put havoc in your body and distort all your energy field. And then you will be thinking negatively, you'll be feeling negatively, and you will be depressed, not because someone made you depressed, it's because you ate something that pulled the life force out of your field. And
mm,
so we talk a lot about examples like this to bring that awareness for people and to help them understand that a healthy life is an everyday life and everyday patterns and habits and disciplines. And we give them all the tools, all the herbs, you don't have to be a list, but you can have at least a knowledge of 4 or 5 herbs, one that calms you down, one that eases your mind, one that is good for your nervous system. So it's the nature of the retreats I do are for healing purposes, but also for educational purposes for people to you know, better their lives in general.
yeah, kinda reset
Like,
their lives even.
yes, you come to Peru, there's this amazing adventure in the mountains. There is Wachuma, there's a sweat lodge, there's so many things going on. Um, and you use the momentum of all that retreat to start changing your life as you go.
Yeah. Well, and that is such an important point, and we've sort of, I think, touched on it even earlier already, is that I feel a lot of people do who are just coming into plant medicine have this idea like, "Oh, I'm just gonna go down and do some ceremonies, and I'm gonna be a whole new person, I'm gonna be fixed, and I don't have to do anything else
Yeah,
after that." But
yeah.
it's really that, as you said, it's the ceremony is the starting point and, like, sort of the ignition, and you have to keep fueling it properly and putting the right intention into it to really change yourself as well as, just be a better person in the world, I would say.
Yes, because if you just do a psychedelic and you don't apply these things and integrate them in your behavior, you end up with a bunch of stories, and you can really like create delusions about your life and not be in a good place.
Mhm.
Think you're in a good place, but not really, or not necessarily being in a good place.
Well, yeah, you will have good stories. This is true, no matter what.
I agree.
Um,
I agree.
and I do wanna a little later in the conversation, I wanna loop back around to, like, you know, plant medicines possibly steering you wrong. So I just want to put a little pin in that.
I
But
think it's a very important conversation.
yeah, yeah. But before we get to that, I do want to get back to kind of ayahuasca. And, you know, I know you spent a number of years with that medicine and studying it and learning from it. And then, you have since, from what I've seen on your website and just hearing you talk, like really kind of shifted your focus to Wachuma, uh,
That is true.
San Pedro, whichever you want to call it. And I'm just curious what like instigated that and how did that path evolve for you?
So after about 7, 8 years of living in the jungle and practicing with ayahuasca and, sanango, and I want to say by then it was about 50, 60 dietas, I got the opportunity to come do San Pedro as an assistant shaman who was just, holding the space and the operation of the space, but not the main maestro that was leading the space. I drank San Pedro, and for the first time, I felt my heart center.
Wow.
And with
Yeah.
ayahuasca, it was only mind, 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 and the duality of the mind and protection. And there's a lot of aggression in ayahuasca. There's a lot of practices where there's the good and bad simply because ayahuasca stimulates the mind center.
Mm,
And I drank San Pedro and I felt my heart center. And for the first time ever in my life, I was able to connect with my body and really start healing my trauma, which is a
mm,
trauma that comes from few months as old to 3 years old. And I found a lot of value in that. And I found a lot of advantages and efficiency in that. And for me, as someone whose intention is to practice healing and medicine, it was one of the most amazing tools that I found. Like, I was like, where was that hidden? Like, why didn't I know about this from before? Um, um, and so that's how it started with San Pedro. And
mm,
every time I had an opportunity to leave the jungle for a couple of days or a week or so, I would come to the Andes, drink San Pedro, go to the mountains, and that would pull all that heat and inflammation that was coming from the jungle and from the heat of the jungle and the duality of the jungle, and it literally pulled all that insanity from my mind and calmed me down, and that made my ayahuasca practice much more efficient and much better.
mm. So
Yeah,
it sort of like balanced out the ayahuasca, both the plant medicine and the environments. Like
exactly,
sounds
because
like they.
ayahuasca brings the elements of fire and air. It's too much in the mind. It's too masculine in the way it codes the universe because it works on the upper centers of the body, which are the masculine sides. Whereas San Pedro is more dominated by earth and water. It's heavy. It's slow. It's very
Mhm.
emotional. Very
Yes.
watery, and it balanced the feminine and the masculine in the body. Um, and I think that was a very, very complementary practice that I found within my ayahuasca journey. And it actually helped me, you know, finalize and come full circle with ayahuasca. It
Mm.
was very, very
What do you mean
positive.
by that? How did it finalize and help you come full circle? If you
Well,
can put words to that.
if you wanna put San Pedro in a philosophy, it looks very similar to Taoism. It's more
Mm,
about connection with nature. It's more about flow. It's more about water being a very strong element rather than, people think water is not like fire or it doesn't push things. But over time, water is also very strong. And when San Pedro brings your awareness and pulls it out from the mind center into the heart center,
mhm,
you can start to see the duality of the world, and you start looking at space and seeing and understanding that you are looking inside your mind
mm,
rather than the mind being something outside of you. Because of the duality of the mind, suddenly the mind becomes part of your consciousness and the physical space becomes your mind. And so when you look at the world like this, you need to claim responsibility of everything happening in your field. because it is your vibration. It's what you are generating and invoking space. And that allowed me to understand that in ayahuasca, when I see a bad shaman being aggressive to the space, it's actually an aspect of my consciousness. And instead of, becoming aggressive towards that energy, how about I go heal it and give it a big hug?
Mm,
And that started to break the churning and the feedback of negativity and aggression of the jungle energy. And
got it.
eventually my whole space became peaceful. And it's almost like I transcended that energy and I didn't need to be there anymore. And this is where I understood that at the core of ayahuasca, it's to bring the awareness into the center and allow you to see with observation and compassion the world. Because what in the psyche of people, they are stuck in their thought patterns and their emotions and they believe that they are real. But if
Right.
you look from ayahuasca and you can actually see the thoughts, not think the thoughts, and this is what we call in mysticism the the Buddha consciousness or the Christ consciousness.
Mm,
So at the
hmm.
core of ayahuasca is the capacity to observe the world with compassion and go beyond the duality. So ayahuasca forces all that duality on the mind so that the mind can pull out of it and see it and have compassion towards it so that you can
Mm,
manage ac- according to your intention and your values. But most of the time, from what I've seen, is that people are stuck in the duality of ayahuasca and they end up, in the good and the bad.
yeah.
And so when I
Yeah.
drank San Pedro, it allowed me to understand that and it allowed me to see ayahuasca for what it is. And at that point, ayahuasca became, an integral part of my practice.
So it's still integral part of your practice, and then you're balancing that with the Wachuma, San Pedro. Uh,
Yes, I practice more with Wachuma simply because I see that San Pedro is much more needed in the world than ayahuasca.
mhm,
Like out of 100 persons, maybe two or three need to drink ayahuasca, but the majority need to drink San Pedro because we have become a species where we are stuck on screens. We believe our thoughts, the future, we call them anxiety. In the past, we call them depression. And
mhm,
we lost that connection with our body, with our emotions, with the field in general, and with nature. And so San Pedro is that key that brings back that connection to the world and to ourselves. And so, because of that, I saw that there's much more value in serving San Pedro for the human race rather than ayahuasca. And this is why I focus much, much more on San Pedro. Even during the retreats where we do ayahuasca, I make sure that the last ceremony is a San Pedro ceremony to help integrate all the ayahuasca journey that people went on. And you need to remember that San Pedro, because it works in the body and the emotions, you don't need to work so hard on integrating the experience because it goes into the body. And the body is the
mm,
subconscious. So you just go back home and you create a structure and the habits and the routines we talk about during the retreat. But after 6 months, you look back and you see that your life is different and you didn't need to do much effort for that because the code is already in your body and it's vibrating in space time and
mhm,
manifesting that you have experienced during the retreats.
yeah. Yeah, well, and there's so much in there that I just wanna, like, pick on, but I'll try to
Yeah, let's
just
do that.
keep it to a couple of things. But, I love how you're saying, in essence, I feel a lot of the earth, the world, the cultures of the world are very, yes, very much more aggressive, masculine, disconnected from nature. And it seems that, as you've said, that Wachuma can help reconnect to that your body, to nature, to feelings in a good and healthy way. And I have also found, just from I've used it a couple times, but just love it. And it is it's so much softer, but still as powerful. Or at least it has been for me. And so to continue to like foster that and hold space for that and nurture that in the world seems super valuable. And I just want to point out, we'll include all of Samir's links and sort of that thing in the show notes and all that. But his Instagram is great for like education around Wachuma, plant medicine in general, and plant, like as you said, herbology and all those other things, but particularly around Wachuma. And I will definitely recommend everyone to go and follow him there because if you're interested in this particular plant medicine, he knows his stuff.
Well, after a few decades, you get to know a couple of.
Yeah. So you sort of touched on this already, but so why would someone want to use, there's always the thought that, oh, whichever plant medicine you need might call you, it might speak to you. And like, that certainly happened with me with ayahuasca, like it sounded like it did with you. And it has since happened when I finally came to Wachuma. But outside of that, of being specifically called to one of these plant medicines, if you're not, if someone's out there not sure, like why would someone want to choose ayahuasca versus Wachuma?
First of all, there's the calling of the plant.
Hmm.
Feel
Yeah.
that or you think for more than a year that you want to try this plant, so it's probably calling you.
Hmm.
On the other hand, the decision, the rational decision to decide what you want to do has a lot to do with what you need. So, and that on that note, I always recommend people talking with someone who serve these plants and know their
Mm,
capacities and understand the intention of the person and what they need. Um,
it's a great tip.
the last point I want to say is that if you end up doing Wachuma, it's because you need to do Wachuma. And if you end up doing ayahuasca or other plants, it's because you need to do those plants. Um, we think that we're going to go for a retreat. We think that we have decided. We think that we're doing it. But in reality, we are being invited by the spirits. So
Mm,
no matter where you end up going, you will end up in the right place. Your job and your homework is to go to the right place in a sense where it's a space where it's safe and people know what they're doing and they have a good reputation and a good set and setting. But in terms of the plant will call you and you will know where to go. Sometimes people, they go on the website, they book a discovery call, and they ask me this question. And I usually ask them, what about their intention? Now, sometimes people have things that they need to release from the body because San Pedro transmutes energy. It doesn't pull them out of the body, it doesn't purge them out. With ayahuasca, you put it in the bucket or in the bathroom, or you sweat all night, or, some sort of a purging. With San Pedro, you buzz like a bell and all your energy just gets transmuted.
hmm.
Sometimes we need to do some sort of a purging for the person for specific energies, especially if they are stuck with substances or they have a lot of rigidity around a certain emotion that is, very well protected from fear or from whatever reason the trauma was. And this is why we use sometimes kambo and sometimes we use the sweat lodge to bring that element of fire, which is the purgative element of the space. And if someone needs to move and understand things on an intellectual level, we also apply wilca. Wilca is a seed from a tree that has
Okay.
DMT, 5-MeO-DMT, and bufotein, and we add it during the San Pedro ceremony. And it's almost like adding chakruna to the ayahuasca. It literally opens
Interesting.
the three upper centers, and then suddenly you have your whole chungo or all the chakra systems completely stimulated by their specific alkaloids. And that brings a very, very powerful experience, but also it brings a lot of clarity for the people who need that intellectual clarity and not only, work with emotions or
Hmm.
the water elements, if I may say.
Yeah. Oh, wow. Well, that makes me want to come down and sit in one of your retreats even more. um, but I did just want to touch on about the medicine calling you, and that, as I mentioned previously, has definitely been my experience. Every time I've done ayahuasca, it's been very clear. And I actually, just a quick little story aside, I had the opportunity to sit and do ayahuasca with a friend of mine, and at first I said yes, but then it just didn't feel right. It was more about wanting to sit with my friends than need the plant medicine calling me. And, it just did not sit right. And I was like, you know what? I got to listen to that because I have also previously done some plant medicine where I kind of forced it and that did not go well. So
That's a
I was
very,
like,
very good call. Very good call.
yeah, yeah. So, yeah, you got to listen to those callings for sure. Now, for those people who don't know, what is kambo?
Yeah. Kambo is a frog, and it's a giant monkey frog. That's the scientific name of it because it's a very big frog compared to frogs, and it lives on the tree, and it goes down to eat and then hangs out on the tree. And the tribe I work with is the Matses tribe, which is somewhere in the jungle at the border between Peru and Brazil.
Okay.
And their medicine is kambo, and they also use tobacco a lot. So they have a lot of rapé and tobacco products that they use. And for many years, I was like, I don't want to practice this because, they're doing harm for the animal, and, we don't want to harm anyone. We just want to use we want harmony in the practice. And then I got the opportunity to meet the chief of the Matses, and he told me, "What do you talk about? These frogs are our pets." They literally call them, and they come down, and then they take the secretion, and then they put the frog back, and they treat them well, and the frogs, take care of them.
Wow.
And I
So
told
it's a
him, "Okay,
secretion from the skin, right? That,
yes,
yeah.
it's a secretion from from the skin of the frog." And the frog, as far as I know, doesn't have any predators in the jungle because of that secretion. And so no one wants to eat the frog. And the way we apply this secretion is we do a very peripheral burn on the skin, and it goes
Mhm.
directly into the lymphatic system. And the value that Kambo brings is that it pulls all the toxins from the lymphatic system and from the liver and the bile. And before the ceremony, people drink probably a liter and a half of water, and that is used as a transporter of all these toxins that eventually they purge them out. Now, what
Incredible.
is very, very amazing about Kambo is not the purgative aspect, it's the peptides that Kambo has, and it's very regenerative for the body. Usually, after a Kambo treatment, that night, people sleep literally like a baby. They're like, I didn't sleep like this for years. I don't even remember when I slept. And all these peptides are very regenerative for the body. And this is what brings so much value to Kambo itself.
Wow.
It's not a shamanic practice. It's more of a detox practice. It's more of a naturopathic practice.
Really?
Yeah,
Okay. Is it as psychedelic then as well, or is it just more of the
it's not. It's not psychedelic.
Okay.
It's a purgative, and there are like 10 minutes during the experience where you're like, "What have I done?"
I done why am I doing this to myself?
Exactly. But after those 10 minutes pass, you're like, "This was amazing. When is the next session?" It's
Wow.
very important, though, Scott, to mention that combo changes a lot in the blood pressure. It
Mm,
pushes the organs and whatnot. So this is why we have such a long medical form that people need to fill before any retreat, just to be on the safe side. In terms of mixing modern medicines, if someone has organ
mhm.
transplants or something weak in their body, we ask about all these details just to be on the safe side. Um, so far, thank all the spirits, we haven't had any incident, and we are very careful, and we are very professional in how we offer the combo. Yeah.
Oh, that's brilliant. Which, goes back to the mixing of the Western modern medicine with these traditional indigenous medicines and just
Yeah,
making
like now
sure
modern medicine is
everyone's
also
playing well.
yeah, like now modern medicine is also catching up on the peptides, and it's like the biggest new
Mhm.
boom and money making machine
It totally
for
is,
these
but here
companies.
we are. The frogs had it already.
Exactly, exactly. So, because it also trauma lives in the lymphatic system, and
Mm.
this is why uh, a child inherits the trauma of his parents or her parents. Um, and so when you flush the lymphatic system, you're also cleaning and flushing the energy and the distortions that are coming from. And so this is where it is very advantageous to use kambo during retreats and the San Pedro ceremonies or any other ceremonies we do after kambo. People can go much deeper and they can open up much more because they got this opportunity to remove all the barriers from their way.
I've not had the, opportunity to do combo yet, but this makes me way more intrigued and to use it in relation to Wachuma. So,
Yeah, start with a
thank
small dose so you don't hate me.
yeah. Yeah. I think that is a smart and wise piece of, advice there.
Yeah.
Uh, um, we mentioned it earlier, and I do wanna loop back is, in any of these plant medicine experiences, I feel, at least in my experience, everything when you're in the space, in the altered state, and having these visions, they can seem so real, so true, and like I must do this as soon as this is over, or become this type of person. And I just want to touch on, can plant medicine like steer you in the wrong direction? Or maybe it's how you interpret the plant medicine can steer you in the wrong direction.
I want to say without proper guidance, that is a big possibility, yes.
Mm,
Because the thing is, when we are practicing with plant medicines, we are actually practicing shamanism and healing therapies, and they are superimposed in the ceremony in the dimension of the plant medicine. And so, example on this is we use sound therapy, we use breath work, we use talk therapy. Sometimes we do a San Pedro ceremony within the sweat lodge. It's also very common here in the Andes to do that. Um, and there's also the guidance of the facilitators and the main practitioner or the shaman in that case. And so, if someone is doing a psychedelic on their own, they are literally churning in their own consciousness. So, the plant is showing them different perspectives, but the energies are your energies. But when you are being held in the right set and settings, the shaman is bringing a bunch of spirits like I call the cosmology of the jungle, the trees, the ayahuasca, the tobacco. I call the cosmology of the Andes and the mountains and Mother Earth and the light beings and the angels. And there are so many energies moving in your consciousness and allowing you to align and move out of the dimensions that you are stuck in. And so when a person starts talking, when we allow talking in the ceremony, the first thing they are telling you where their psyche is and how they are seeing the world and how their cosmology changed and their worldview is shifting. And so a very important part of the guidance is to show people, be careful. This is probably an illusion, or this is probably a story, or usually things like that come from a need or something, some energy that is not fulfilled, or some trauma that doesn't want to be met. And the person is turning around it and creating a whole different story. And so our job is to always make sure that the person is going to the right source of the distortion so that they can heal it and not create all these stories around it, but do anything they can so that they don't meet the pain or the scary part that they don't want to meet. Which in reality, after they meet it, they're like, I don't know why I was hiding it for so long. It's not that scary. But,
Mm.
a little
Yeah.
kid that got traumatized, for them, it was a very big deal. And so that very big deal is what stays in the mind, and that is the protection mechanism. And so if you do psychedelics and you're not in the proper guidance, it can steer you away, yes, into, I want to say, not a very harmonious and constructive place.
Yeah. Yes, I agree, and I think, in general, even with, someone like yourself holding the space and, tell me if you agree with this, but in general, if people ask me about this sort of thing, I'm like, just don't make any major life shifts for at least a month, 2 months after the ceremonies because things continue to evolve, right? And you come to new understanding. You're like, oh, this actually meant that, not this.
Yeah, like
So
don't go back home, quit your job, and just uh, lose everything you built for many years just because you saw something in a psychedelic space, for sure.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Um, well, there's a couple last kind of speed questions I want to ask you, but before we get to that, there's still like I wanted to ask you about dietas and
Yeah.
all sorts of other things. So we'll have to have you back on to get into that sort of thing. But is there anything else you want to say specifically about Wachuma um, that people might want to know?
I think a little bit of general information when Wachuma stimulates the heart center and the three lower chakras. And even though the vibe and the common understanding about Wachuma is that it's very gentle, there I did have a lot of cases where people were like, "We thought ayahuasca was strong. This is like much, much stronger." And what makes Wachuma so strong is that it's very, very long. So
This is true.
when when a mushroom or an ayahuasca ceremony is a 3-4 hour gig, San Pedro is still opening up after 3 hours. And so the average experience with Wachuma is 15 hours. And what I like people to know is that if you have stubborn or very protected energies that you are scared of dealing with or not willing to deal with, San Pedro gives so much time and so much space for someone to really sit with it and eventually decide that they want to change it. It's also very important to note here that spirits will never tell you what to do because spirits
That's
respect
very important.
the law of the universe, which one of them is the law of free will. And so you can always ask Wachuma questions. You can always say, "What am I doing here that is giving me this result? I cannot see it. I have a blind spot here." Or how can I do things differently? And then the plant will show you in the visions and the feelings and the decisions and the thought patterns. And then it's up to you to choose it. And because of that length and because of that patience, a lot of people end up coming to a resolution with their problem because they did get that time, they did get that sense of safety and uh, self love that is really where the value of San Pedro is. Um, Safety comes from the father, and unconditional love comes from the mother from for a baby. And a lot of the times, our parents they did have their traumas as well, or they have their traumas
Of
as well,
course.
and couldn't share with us these energies. And so we never understood the vibration and how it feels to really love ourselves and how it feels to
Mhm.
be safe in the body. And so this is where the main value of San Pedro is that it literally shows you how it feels to love yourself and how it feels to be safe in your body. And because of that, a lot of people, their lives change because suddenly they are calm, they are feeling safe, they have their boundaries, they understand how to flow in the world without being scared and in this fight or flight response. And this is also another reason why I see the value of San Pedro is because it moves people out of the dimension of fight or flight back into safety, back into creation, and back into manifestation of the world.
Yes, will witness that all of that you just said is true. I've
Thank you.
it, like, allows you to experience that self-love, allows you to feel safe in your body, which, as you said, I mean, so many majority, I am sure, of this world just do not even know what that means, or doesn't even make sense to them by us
Yeah,
saying it, because you have to actually get there to experience and be like, oh my gosh, this is what
it's
it should
something I
feel.
see literally every single retreat. Literally every
Yeah.
single men and women,
Yeah.
not only. It's not like it's for everyone.
Yeah. Yeah.
Also, San Pedro has, in a physical sense, it pulls inflammation out of the body because it has so much water. It counteracts all
Mm,
the fire in the nervous system. So
mm.
you get like the first couple of hours in San Pedro, everyone's yawning and thinking they're gonna fall asleep, but in
Yep.
reality, it's
Yeah.
pulling all that inflammation from the nervous system and calming the nervous system.
Mm,
Uh, all I can tell you is
yeah.
that it's phenomenal medicine, and when it's used in the right way, it has so much potential.
Yeah. I completely agree. Phenomenal medicine,
Yeah.
period. And, and I also just want to point out there one thing I do appreciate, having looked at your website and read up and listened to you talk a couple other places, is, going from being this accidental shaman kind of person to holding these amazing retreats, and like small retreat size. Like, I think you pretty much, it's like 6 people or something like that. And,
Yes.
compared to a
Uh,
bunch of there's Aya ceremonies out there that have 50, 100 people. And you're just like, how is that even working? So this intimate 6-person retreat it's something special. Like, I've been, not to yours, but to others that are of that size. And it adds a whole nother layer of beauty to it, I would say.
yes, and the intention is healing and it's helping and it's supporting people. And so how much time can how like there's one person, how much can you divide yourself for a ceremony?
Yeah.
So to
Yeah.
really
Yeah.
keep the highest quality of medicine and the highest support for people, I don't think a bigger group would be as efficient as keeping the group small and really giving the highest quality of medicine, attention, support, and time for every person during the retreat. Um, it's just serving the intention that I have, which is serving the medicine, versus trying to make big groups. And yes, I have a company, but I'm using the company to intend to share medicine and not make a big corporation out of it.
Yeah. It's your livelihood, but it's not about the, as you said, making it a big corporation.
Yeah, like the value I'm
Yeah.
giving the healing, and then the money is a reaction to that, but it's not the main goal.
And your company, or your retreat centers, you can find it at samadhihealing.com, and I'll
Yes.
put that in the show notes. Is there anything place else that people might wanna, we mentioned Instagram already.
Yeah,
Any
I'm
place
available
else?
on Instagram and on my website, and I always post, educational stuff, and every now and then I post about the retreat or if I update the calendar or something like that. Um, yeah, this is what how I'm sharing myself with the world.
Okay,
Mm.
perfect. So yeah, if you have any more questions about any of the plant medicine or Wachuma, certainly he is a brilliant resource to reach out to.
Thank you.
Um, Last 3 kind of quick questions. What is a hallucination, quote unquote, or a vision, which is a more appropriate term, really, that you have had in the last month or year that has taught you something new?
I think one of the personal things I learned recently, I was on a hike in Pumawanka, and there's this very elder tree. Is this the right way to put it in English? It's like a very old tree that we every time
Oh, tree,
we're
yeah.
there, we do offerings for it, and we sit in its energy field, and we receive information from it. And I think one of the things that really stabilize inside myself is that because in shamanism and when you're practicing healing, there's a lot of feedback and people telling you negative things, and there's a lot of judgment about what you're doing and whatnot. And
Mm,
so, Tree told me is that just stick to your values, stick to your integrity, and just follow the direction of what you're doing. And no matter what the noises are happening on the sides of the street, it doesn't matter. Just keep on doing what you're doing, and um, keep your reference in your values and with the spirits. So that was a moment where I was wondering about things in my life and in my practice, and the confirmation came from the spirits that just stick to the path. Yeah, I
I
didn't I
love
didn't
that.
expect to be talking about something personal today, but I guess I am.
Well, we appreciate that, and yeah, I mean, trees, man. I yeah, trees. That's I just gonna leave it at that. They're great. Um, so, what is
I was in a
second
San Pedro
question?
ceremony. Just to bring the clearer picture, I was in a San Pedro ceremony, so I had San Pedro in my system. Yeah,
Okay, okay. Well, even without it, I've been like, yeah, that totally lines up for me.
yeah.
um, second question. So yeah, these are maybe a little more personal, but we don't have to go whatever
That's
you feel
okay.
comfortable
I
with.
will I will I
Yeah.
will answer as much.
Yeah. What in again in the last month, the last year or so, what is something you've had to lose? And this could be good or bad that has informed who you are or changed who you are.
Scott, I've so far in my decades of practice, I never had anyone who I couldn't heal, or not me
Mm,
really, but I couldn't facilitate their healing. And it happened that one of my best friends decided not to tell me what's happening with her. And
mm,
the last week of her life, and she ended up dying of cancer. And that was a very, very big shot to my person, to my ego, because I couldn't do anything about it. And I had to sit and watch a friend, a very dear friend, uh, die. And I sat with her in the hospital for about 10 days, watching life leaving her every day a little bit. So that brought a lot of humility to my practice and made me much more humble and much more accepting of life and what happens in life. It was a big deal for me. And it happened about a month ago. Yeah.
oh, wow. Yeah, that's still fresh. Still grieving, no
Yeah.
doubt.
It was a hard one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, sending love to both you and your friend.
Thank you.
Yeah, yeah. Um, well, and then on the opposite side of that, I want to hold a little more space for that actually. Just um maybe just a moment.
And I realized that sometimes people, they choose their destiny. And
Yeah.
even though she knew she could have reached out, she chose not to do so. And so I had to respect.
Yeah. Yeah. Some important insight for sure. Yeah. Doesn't make it easier, but
Yeah.
yeah,
But compassion, I guess, is the key word here.
well said.
Yeah.
Compassion. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um well, and also with compassion is love. So the last question is what is something you are loving right now and why?
Well, given that it's the year of the dragon, and it's the year where there's so much fire and so much opportunities to grow things, I'm really loving the path I'm on, the growth that is happening, all the opportunities that are opening up. Uh, Opportunities like doing retreats internationally, in places where it's legal, of course, and places like Costa Rica or other places. And all these are still brewing. They are like seeds that are being planted little by little, but it's very
Mm,
exciting. And, and
very.
uh, you know, it it uh, it shows me that I'm on my path, and it's my right path. So It's very exciting for my journey.
Oh, that's awesome. As the tree said,
As the
stay
tree
on that
said,
path.
exactly. Let's stick to it.
Well, I have loved this last hour talking with you, and thank you so much for sharing all your wisdom. And I look forward to the next time we can dive even deeper into all of it.
Thank you, Scott. It's been wonderful, and thank you again for the opportunity to share the medicine and the information about the medicine. It's actually one of my pacts with San Pedro to make sure that San Pedro is shared in a healthy and efficient way. So thank you very much for the opportunity,
Mm, yeah. Well, and again, thank you. Till next time.
Scott. Okay, bye.
This content is for educational and harm reduction purposes only. We do not promote or support illegal activity, the sale or use of restricted substances, or the use of associated tools or accessories. This is not medical advice, and you should consult a qualified professional for your health decisions.